Before Jeremy starts, just everyone, if you didn't hear what's going on, make sure before you speak that you do state your name because she's not going to give it.
And with that, I'll call this August 23rd, 2018 meeting of the Carson City Library Board of Trustees to order. And we can proceed with the roll call.
Chairperson Hayes.
Present?
Vice Chair Long.
Present.
Trustee Cranston. Trustee Patton. Trustee Solinger. A quorum's present.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item 2, public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the library board, now would be the time. Seeing none forthcoming, we'll move to item 3, approval of the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. Did everybody have a chance to review those minutes, and were there any changes?
Phyllis Patton, for the record. I did not see any changes or things that needed to be changed in the minutes, so I would make a motion to approve as accepted, or accept as approved.
I'll second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 4, the Friends of the Carson City Library report.
For the record, Phyllis Patton again. I handed out the report to the board members, and there are copies back in the back, but I was late getting it into Chris, so it's not really a part of your packet. So pick up a copy out there, because I'm not going to read it to you. It gives you what happened during the month of July in the bookstore. It was a pretty good month sales-wise. It was a fantastic month for donations, if we just had a place to put them all. So that was good. And other Friends news besides the bookstore, our executive committee met at the end of July and appointed an interim vice president. Unfortunately, we did not discuss travel plans with her when we made that decision, and she shortly thereafter took off for France, so she has not been present yet to be introduced to anybody. Her name is Robin Meyer, and she will be taking over for the vice president as soon as she gets back. I think that's at the end of next week. We hosted our annual appreciation luncheon for the staff of the Friends of the Library. There were 15 of the staff members that were present there for lunch, so we were glad to have that many of you there, and we do really appreciate everything you've done over the last year. We had 2 July author events, one with a gentleman by the name of Mark Hartman, who had a lifetime in railroading, and he had written a mystery kind of around the theme of railroads, which was very interesting. He drew a decent crowd. We had the most intrepid Western authors posse on July 27th, and it's a group of 4 Western authors who every year on their vacation get together for a week or so and travel around parts of the West, and this year it included Virginia City, Carson City, and I forgot where the other one was they had been to. Very interesting people. They each had a totally different book to tell us about. We had everything from sort of like a cookbook to a very interesting book about Annie Oakley, and one about the cattle rangers, not cattle rangers, but the people who work as detectives for the Cattle Association to find rustled cattle, which I didn't know they still had any problems with, but apparently they do. And one, I'm suddenly drawing a blank on what the fourth guy's book was about, but it was also very interesting. They were all very, especially the two ladies, there were two ladies and two gentlemen, were very outgoing, so we had a very exciting evening, all evening before, during, and after. And we've also had two authors already in August. One was at the very beginning of August. He is a local author who has been to our bookstore before. He really writes kind of off the wall but very interesting stuff, but he doesn't have a very big following yet, so I was a little disappointed in that one. But last night we had Dr. Karen Gedney, the former prison doctor at the state prison, with her new book called 30 Years Behind Bars. She has developed the following already. We had standing room only. We had more people than we had chairs to put them in. She's very, very compelling, interesting, and she ran out of books before I got a chance to get one. But she is available on Amazon, so you can get it. It's just very, very interesting. And our website is up and running. We still have a couple of areas that we need to add to that we haven't quite perfected yet. It's very easy to use. We have the same website as we had before, the same URL. That's friendscclibrary.org. So check that out. And that's it for the last month or so. Okay?
Excellent. Thank you very much, Phyllis. Moving on to item 5, Library Board of Trustees business, starting with the membership to the Nevada Library Cooperative.
Okay, so Sina Lloyd for the record. We have in your packet, you have the white paper that was written by the co-op director, as well as the NRS that allows the interlocal agreement to occur. And that is what we are in right now. We're in the last year of a 5-year interlocal agreement. And I have Cindy O, who is the cooperative director, here to talk with you about the cooperative. We do not have an invoice yet, so we're not going to motion on this for payment, but I do think that some of the interesting things that the cooperative does for our library and surrounding libraries, as well as some of the challenges that we face. So I welcome up Cindy.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. Cindy O, for the record, Director, Nevada Library Cooperative. Where to begin? The cooperative has actually been around since 1981. It was originally organized to help our rural libraries get automated. And so that kind of created this network where all of our Nevada libraries can share materials with each other, share ideas, get professional advice from each other, support, that kind of thing. So we were lucky enough to have a coordinator who was in place for about 25 years, and she retired just a couple of years ago. We had a replacement coordinator come in. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. In that time period, some things kind of got a little rocky. Services faltered. Members began expressing concerns about what was going to happen with this organization. So there was a 2-month period where the director position was not manned. I stepped in January of this year, and we have been able, very fortunately, to pass a budget. We were able to get a grant for $50,000 to do a strategic planning project that's going to really flesh out what our members want, what they need, and kind of point us in a very, very good, productive direction moving forward. So we, as Sina mentioned, we certainly have had some difficulty and some rocky roads. I'm optimistic, and I think that we're going to be able to move forward with this in one way or another. It may not necessarily look the way that it always has in the past. As you may have heard, we're taking some pretty dramatic steps to upgrade the technology and the network and the infrastructure that surrounds the cooperative. So we're moving a lot of our systems to the cloud, getting rid of hardware that comes with an additional cost. That kind of stuff. So we're definitely looking at modernizing, improving, hopefully in the future expanding services, new resources for the members to use, and it's exciting times, I can say that.
Sina Lloyd for the record, and as part of that, I sit on the board. So each entity that is a member, the director of that entity sits on the board. And then we do have an executive committee in which I sit on as well. One of the projects that is going to happen here in 1 week is the movement of our library catalog and integrated library system, which is more than just the catalog, is going to be moving to the cloud. And so we're preparing, having some technical issues in the process, but we're preparing for that, and hopefully any of those issues that we do face will not be public-facing issues, and they will be issues that we can fix on the back end. And then, Amy, do you want to talk just briefly about the overdrive and what that opportunity with the cooperative gave us? You can do it now and then don't say it later.
I was going to say the same
I was
thing.
going to put some of this in my report, but I can mention it now. One of the projects which we'd kind of been talking about for a little bit of time before this, and were able to implement with Cindy's help, was to get the majority of the cooperative, including several libraries that had existing separate Overdrive e-resource collections, combined into one big one that has tripled the size of our collection, and I think ours is definitely one of the larger existing ones. And also is providing that number of resources to libraries that may have previously had little or no electronic collections. So that's pretty cool. Yes. What?
She can't read my lips, apparently.
No.
The cost of doing
it's
that
cheaper.
was much cheaper, and we were able to put more into content.
Yeah, so because of the size of, for this type of resource, there's generally a platform fee that maintains the website and the hosting of all this content, as well as pricing for the individual titles. And that's generally priced by the size of the service area. And because of the size of Carson City's population especially, we're kind of right over that 50,000 mark, which is a cutoff for a lot of pricing. So the price for the entire co-op is the same as for us. Splitting that cost between the entire cooperative has made a huge difference in the amount that we and the other libraries can spend on content, which is much more fun. So that's really good as well.
Yeah, and I would say also, to piggyback on the Overdrive piece, it gave us an opportunity to partner with 2 libraries that are not current cooperative members. So, we consider that kind of some inroads. Hopefully that'll be, the first step to recruiting them as full members. So, yeah, there's another opportunity that we see there. Can I answer any questions for you all?
No, I don't think we have any questions. I do want to thank you for taking the time to come out and speak with us, and yeah. So insofar as the action item that's on the agenda, we're going to table that until we have an invoice, is that correct?
Sina Lloyd for the record, that is correct. For payment, that would also have to go to the Board of Supervisors because it is over the interlocal agreement amount that is per city policy. And so we will get library board approval, and then we'll take it to the supervisors, and then we will make payment.
Perfect. All right. Excellent. Well, thank you again very much, Ms. O.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. All right, with that, we'll move to item 5B, the contract for Matt Westfield, entrepreneur in residence at the Adams Hub.
For the record, Valerie Quape, Business Development Manager with Carson City Library's Special Library Services Program for Economic Development at the Adams Hub for Innovation. Still a mouthful. So the purpose of this contract is to provide an entrepreneur in residence program there at the Adams Hub. You'll notice that the dates are from July 1st through December 31st. What we're doing is we're kind of testing out this program and seeing the successes of it before we either expand or retract it somewhat. What the entrepreneur in residence really does is they are a coach, a mentor, and also a recruitment tool, if we're putting it very, very briefly. So what Matt will do is he meets with community members and he helps them discuss the viability of their business idea, identify places of weakness, identify strengths. He helps them identify potential target markets, pricing, etc. And what we're doing with this program is we're offering one free session with him to community members to get them in the door, also give them an opportunity to talk to someone who has literally been there, done that. He is a serial entrepreneur. He has started and sold many companies. He also works up at the University of Nevada, Reno in the business School of Business there, and has previously also worked at the Innovation Center. So he's very experienced and aware of what this program needs to be and what it should look like. He was also, this particular program and Matt were involved in the Adams Hub previous to the transition, and from everyone we've talked to, it was probably one of the most successful pieces of that previous programming, and so that's why we really want to bring that forward. Any questions about his scope of work or anything about that?
I think that of course, my first question is, where's the money for it? So.
Sina Lloyd for the record. So the money here lies in the professional services category of the budget. So if you look at the 232 budget, and I will find the page in your packet. It is page 60. What you'll see is the, kind of in the middle of that page, the 0309 professional services line item. We have budgeted $40,240 in that. What we've done, and the reason that this contract would go through December rather than through the end of the year, is that we want to ensure that we are on revenue targets to ensure that we do have the full amount of money for this. And so this will allow us to evaluate what our spending is looking like and how we can proceed from there. The other piece of this is a contract to not exceed that amount of money. And so monthly we will be looking at that and looking at our revenues and making the best decision for the budget of the Adams Hub.
What was that line item again, Sina? And for the record, I just want to note that Trustee Solinger has joined the meeting.
So with that, it is 0309. So it's kind of it's the top of that second block that you're looking at entitled Professional Services.
And then, could you tell me a little bit more about what he was doing with the Adams Hub prior to the library involvement?
So the structure prior to the transition to library management was, it was a little bit more fluid, shall we say. So he was the entrepreneur in residence, but he was also a part of several different aspects of the programming there itself. It doesn't look like there is any actual contract in place previous to that. But what he did was work largely with the incubation clients, which is something that we're going to be utilizing him for. We also have included a certain number of hours allocated with each monthly membership. I think most of them are 1 hour a month with him. I believe the executive startups are 2, and then there's more for other types of memberships. Another nice thing about this is that they can purchase more hours with him for $10 more than what we're paying him effectively. And so it can be at least a cost recovery thing as well. members of the public are welcome to book with him as well, however, at a much increased rate. We really want to encourage people to become our members and reap the other benefits of Adams Hub membership.
Okay, if there's no further discussion or questions on this item, I would entertain a motion.
Trustee Long, for the record, I will make a motion to approve the contract for Matt Westfield.
And as part of that motion, you do need to direct me to,
The amount? Oh,
there is a,
let me see it. Give me the words.
it's there. It's on page 17, there's a suggested action there for you.
Okay. I move to approve funding a contract with Matt Westfield for Entrepreneur in Residence Program at the Special Library Services Program for Economic Development at Adams Hub. I direct the library director to execute an agreement with Mr. Westerfield for the purpose on behalf of the Board of Trustees. This contract, do you have to read that part of it too? Will have an fiscal impact that does not exceed $13,850 before December 31st, 2018.
I'll second that motion.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And with that, we'll move on to item 5C, the contract for Molly Dahl at the Adams Hub.
For the record, once again, Valerie Quape, Business Development Manager, and I'll leave the rest of that off. So one of the other programs that was previously successful at the Adams Hub for Innovation was what was called the New Entrepreneurs Network, also called New E. And what that is it's an educational program that works in conjunction with the Carson High School and Carson City School District's CTE program to help business students, because they do have a business program there, to help them develop their entrepreneurial skills. And so some of the topics that are covered in this New E program that is written by and delivered by Molly Dahl would include characteristics and qualities of the successful entrepreneur, the entrepreneurial mindset and growth mindset, problem solving, use of mind maps, roots of creativity, divergent and disruptive thinking, but also, again, in the context of business, we're not being proponents of anything inappropriate, building the winning pitch, marketing strategies, and many others. Again, this is a program that was indicated to us that it was successful. We understand that other elected officials are a fan of it, so we wanted to keep this going and see how it goes for the first 6 months. This contract is again through December 31st of this year.
Sina Lloyd for the record. I also do want to note for you that later on this agenda, you will be looking at a $10,000 contract with the school district, and that's the school district paying us $10,000 to run this program at the high school. And so we did not have that grant, that contract prior to putting this in the packet, but we were able to get that into the packet so that you guys can vote on that today. And so the entire cost of this individual's current contract would be covered by that school district contract.
Trustee Long, for the record. So how does this program look with tying it in with the Adams Hub? Like, is it at the high school? Do you bring them to the Adams Hub? Are they involved in any other programs within the Adams Hub?
So currently, Molly is working with the staff at Carson High School to kind of hammer out those details. At the moment, the curriculum is written to be implemented at the school itself. However, there may be opportunities to bring them to the Adams Hub, which is really what I'm looking to do, get them used to that idea and get them used to the idea that this is a place they can come to receive services to help them grow their business ideas, even if they are still in high school. We do have a student rate with our co-working, and we'd love to see more youth in there.
Excellent. I think that sounds phenomenal. If there's no other discussion or questions on this item, I would entertain a motion.
For the record, Phyllis Patton, I move to approve the approving funding a contract with Molly Dahl for the new entrepreneur program at the Special Library Services Program for Economic Development at Adams Hub, and to direct Sina Lloyd, Library Director, to execute an agreement with Ms. Dahl for this purpose on behalf of the Library Board of Trustees. This contract will have a fiscal impact that does not exceed $6,392 before December 31st, 2018.
I second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. With that, we'll move on to item 5D, the Adams Hub policy.
Once again, Valerie Coiffé, Business Development Manager. So we were looking at, as we're developing our programs and processes, we really needed some policies in place. And we decided to mirror the policy format of the library and the library policy. And so thus, this is intended to be a living document that will change over time. What we will do is either highlight or change the color of the text to indicate any changes, additions, subtractions, that the policy happens between policies, and then bring it back to the board for approval as necessary. There are several different things covered here in the policy, including some definitions, how we're governed, our price lists, member late fees, conference room reservations and use, signage, and other topics as well.
In my opinion, it all looks pretty standard. I don't have any questions myself. If there are no questions or comments from the board, then I would entertain a motion.
Trustee Long, and I move to approve the Adams Hub policy.
I second.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 5E, the fiscal year 19 Library Services Technology Act grant.
Yes, Diane Baker, Department Business Manager for the record. And this is the Library Services and Technology Act program that application we had applied for in almost started the process about 9 months ago. The program through the State Library and Archives and the review, we were granted $31,400, which is a reduction from what we had originally requested. And so what you have in your packet is the grant and aid and then the revised grant application. And in negotiation with the State Library, we were able to determine that we could accomplish a good portion of our original goals. We will have to trim in some on what we had hoped to do, but in coordination also with the Nevada Library Cooperative, we will be sharing some data that's appropriate for our area, so that will help support what we're able to do with the reduced grant amount. And so what we're asking for you today is to accept the grant for the Carson City Library to proceed. Are there any questions?
I know that I don't have any questions. I know that we've been waiting on this grant for quite some time.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
I look forward to that moving forward. If there are any questions or comments from the board, if not, then I would entertain a motion.
Trustee Long, I'll make a motion to accept the grant and move forward.
I'll second that motion.
Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 5F, the New Entrepreneur Network at the Adams Hub.
Okay, so as Iris and I were taking a look at this, Granicus did not include the words "for possible action," and so we will not be able to discuss or take action on this item, and we will bring it back for informational at a later date.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Good catch, Iris. In that case, we will table that item, and then we'll move on to item 6, the Library Director Administrative Reports.
Sina Lloyd for the record. So you have my written report in your packets. Just to highlight a couple of those items, we've begun planning for the Nevada Legislature in 2019. That will be important for libraries. Last year we secured $500,000 worth of funding over the biennium, and we're looking to secure hopefully more funding for this coming year. And so we're working with the Nevada Library Association, as well as other libraries in the north mainly, but we will be working with the southern libraries as well to get that going. Since we are in the capital, it makes it very easy for us to facilitate some of that connection for individuals. I then have participated, I do the Carson Chatter podcast with Garrett Lapierre, who's a realtor in Carson City, and we've recorded 3 more of those. We're doing that with library partners as well as community members, so take a look at that if you do listen to podcasts. It's a really good opportunity to highlight and showcase what the library is doing, but also what the community and our partners are doing too. We, all staff had to complete IT security training issued by the Carson City IT department because of some of the issues with the email taking the system down, essentially. So we did complete that. We've worked with the Nevada Library Cooperative in the ways that you heard earlier. I participated in the Ripple, or Research Institute for Public Libraries. It was a really great session and conference. They only invite 100 people, and I was on their wait list, and then they called me up and said, hey, we've got a spot, and so I went. But it is very data driven. We discovered a couple different resources that we'll be able to use in our strategic planning process, that some of them are free and then some of them are not free, but it's a really good tool for us to have kind of in our tool belt to see what we're going to do with our strategic planning. We also were introduced, Institute of Museum and Library Services has released an actual searchable, comparable database for libraries. So you can look up the Carson City Library, or the other day I got a question from our former board member, John Liverati, about Boulder City Library, and you can look it up and you can see all their financials, you can see the number of staff they have, and then you can compare that to what we have or what another library might have. It also helps identify peer libraries, so we can see how we're doing related to different peer libraries that are similar to our size and have a similar staff or a similar budget, and how they're able to maybe have twice as many programs as we have, or they have half as many computers as we have. So it's a good tool. We have also been working on Adams Hub items, and I'm not going to go too far into it, but before I went to Ripple, which was in Georgia, it was very wet and hot there. We went to Phoenix, Valerie and I did, and she does have that in her report, and it was very dry and hot there. So those were good trips. Coming up here, just so you guys are aware, next week I am on vacation. I do have to use leave time or I will lose it by the end of the year. I'm usually always in that position, but I am extremely in that position this year. So the month of November, I think I might work 10 days. So just a preview of what that is looking like. Doesn't mean I actually don't work on those days. It just means that I'm trying to take those off at least. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, I don't see any questions, so we could go ahead and move on to item 6B, the budget reports.
Okay, so in your packet, you have a couple different things going on. The first thing I do want to tell you about, so the FY18 final budget, because P-card still had not hit, I just have not included that, and we will look at that final budget at our September meeting, and then you'll be able to really, it's final at that point in time. So instead of giving you the same reports that we did in July, I thought that would be more useful for you. You'll then see there is the link to the budget widget, which Diane does have up here. And then in your packets, you have a screenshot of that budget widget. I know that it is small. I am working on trying to figure out how Smartsheets will let me print that larger. And then you'll have all of the backup. That is not something that we printed and included last time, but I do think that is important for you. So if you do have questions, such as the question about the EIR and if we had the budget for it, you then can find that in your packets. So with that, you can kind of take a look up at the screen, if you can see that, and I'm looking at that one because it's easier to read, but I will try. No, you can't. You can't make it bigger than that. But what you will do, so on the revenue, if you click on that, that's actually going to take you to the revenue documents. So people can, if they're on this widget and they're exploring, they'll be able to access the actual budget pages in there. And then same with expenditures. So it's the same items that you have in your packet. Okay, so with that, we're at the beginning of the year. We're still pretty good with, with our funding. We look to be on track with our different items. We are working right now on bringing on another library clerk and a library shelver. Those positions they're part-time, and they will not work a full 20-hour week, but we do have some individuals who will be cutting back their hours because of school, or like Bryce, he went off to college, and so we are trying to replace him kind of on our docket, if you will. So you'll kind of see that in our hourly and seasonal. During the summer, we do use more of that than at any other time of the year. If you scroll down, you'll see that if you scroll down more, in the Adams Hub, which is at 232 expenditures, our expenditures are all right, and the revenue that you see for the Adams Hub right now is still that $200,000. We're working with the city to make sure that those reports come out a little bit cleaner for you. But we are a little short of what we maybe projected for some of our revenue, and that's also why we brought you 6-month contract rather than a year-long contract, and just kind of to take a look and see where we're at. The Friends of the Library graciously let us use their month over at the movie theater, and so we advertise the co-working space over at the movie theater, so we're hoping to bring in some revenue from that. So, are there any questions about the budget? Is there any more feedback about the dashboard?
I think this gives us a very good way to find out everything we're looking for.
My only comment is that I would definitely still like the micro data that's in the packet and all that. That just makes it a little bit easier.
So
for
what
me
you
to
have
go-
right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing additional, though?
Right.
Okay.
Right. I think that that's perfect. This gives us a really good snapshot, and then when we want to dig into line items, we're perfectly capable of doing that too. So I love it.
Okay, thank you.
And that was all for the budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So with that, we'll move on to item 7A, the admin update.
Diane Baker for the record again, and just a quick note there, National Night Out, Virginia Evans and I, and then we had also Oprah the Owl join us in addition to another staff member to participate in this community outreach that is for safety and community services. It was actually a great night. We had made a lot of great connections and contacts, not only with the community, but with other individuals at different organizations. And you probably could see a few of us dancing out to the DJ every now and then. So it was a really great connection, and really the Sheriff's Department, Deputy Lisa Davis does a great job on that. The other is, of course, the LSTA grant, and you just voted on, and we are wrapping up the tidbits of several of other grants just to get our final reports in by the end of next month. So did you have any questions on these? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Diane. Moving on to the Adams Hub update.
For the record, Valerie Quape, Business Development Manager. So what I wanted to talk about today was a little bit about our trip to Phoenix that Sina mentioned earlier. There were some kind of key takeaways that we had from that trip. First of all, that the SILSPID is ultimately a hybrid program. So when we were researching different library programs and co-working programs, some of them sounded very similar to what we had going on here at the Adams Hub. They're maybe not quite so similar, but that's not a bad thing. So there's something that's called a super hub, as defined by BIA, which is the International Business Incubator Association. And what a super hub is something that blends co-working and business development and entrepreneurship programs and incubation and acceleration all together. Because oftentimes organizations will do just one or maybe two of those and not all of them. And so that's effectively what we are, is a super hub. It's okay that we're different. And I think that's something that we've been hearing from other people is, well, what is the model that you're modeling off of? And we are modeling off of several different things to build this foundation. But it is a center for innovation. So that's what we're doing. Okay, so beyond that, we did also get some really great ideas of different programs and things that we could implement. So first of all, the picture that I have up there is a networking binder. That's something that we saw at the downtown Phoenix Library. When you walked into the Adams Hub when we first started, there were business cards everywhere. We're wondering, okay, so are these members? Are they mentors? Are they preferred companies? We can't do that because we're a public entity. How do we handle all these business cards? And so what they had done in Phoenix was they had this business card binder for anyone who wanted to drop a business card. They could, so it supported local businesses, but also doesn't show preference to any specific business. So that's something that we decided to implement, cheap, easy, and it's so far been effective. And it's been nice to have somewhere to put all these cards that we started accumulating. Another thing we saw was at a private co-working facility, and they had this really cool thing called a karma wall. And so what the karma wall is if you are a member there and you have a specific skill that you'd like to help someone out with, you can give out some karma and offer that to other members for free. Conversely, if you're stuck on something and you need a specific skill, you can put up a karma request basically and say, hey, can anyone help me out with this? And what I would assume would have been the case would be that, the requests would be full and there'd be almost nothing, totally opposite. There were the availability of things that people were willing to share with other members was almost completely jam-packed. And there were only 2 or 3 things up on the, hey, I'm stuck on this wall. So that was really cool to see, and I think that's something I'd really like to build into our culture there at the Adams Hub. Also, it's something that doesn't cost us anything except for maybe some pretty inexpensive materials to set something up like that. So that's an easy win. Another thing was casual networking events. These networking events sounded like they were for members only. What I'd like to do is explore casual networking events for our members, mentors, and then maybe we feature a sponsor company or a board of trustee or an elected official. I mean, we look at different options there. That's still very much in kind of the initial thinking about things phase and in kind of exploring different options. So more to come on that later on down the road. Also, culture was incredibly important in these spaces. The spaces that had an organization culture that you could feel, that you could identify with, were far busier than those that were just empty spaces with professional-looking tables and chairs. And so that's something that I really feel we need to focus on in the next few months, is rebuilding that culture, increasing the energy there at the Adams Hub, looking at different ways that we can do that, whether it's networking events, whether it's kind of something to get the members together. We're exploring different options. Again, that's very much in the formative stage, but that is on the radar. And we also had some opportunities for collaboration. So one of the people that we talked to, or at least one of the people that we talked to out there in Phoenix when we were doing site visits, would like to kind of keep in touch, and we can share some lessons learned and successes, how we overcome challenges. And then we were also made aware of some collaboration opportunities that we may have here. So for example, SBA was hugely involved with a lot of those libraries that we visited, and we're like, oh, well, we have an SBA person right here. What can we do to partner better? So we've been working with them to identify ways that we can really leverage their services and kind of strengthen that partnership. On that note, the Associate Administrator of Field Offices, so the second dude in command, I guess, at SBA, stopped by for a visit last week. Got to talk to him, and he was very excited about this program and was really looking forward to seeing how everything goes, and really wants to support SBA and the Adams Hub in our partnership. So that's all good news there. Talking about moving on to the progress towards the interim strategic plan objectives and KPIs, I did include more detailed reports on that progress. I was not intending to present them all, 60 pages, unless you really want me to. But I thought I'd just highlight, we do have 2 of those KPIs completed. We've completed an internship program overview and plan, which is also included in your packet. And then we have also succeeded in transferring all applicable business-related educational opportunities from the library itself over to the Adams Hub. There may be some later down the road that may be a little bit more elementary that may not be appropriate for Adams Hub, or if they require access to a computer or a desktop computer specifically, we may not be able to do that there because we just can't furnish that in that facility. So for example, we have some lovely events coming up soon about digital marketing, and within those materials we're mentioning, please bring your own smartphone or computer or laptop. They won't be furnished. So that's kind of the rundown there. As you notice, we also have a great lineup of events coming up here soon. Quick edit to that is that the Lunch and Learn that was scheduled for tomorrow has been moved to September 27th.
So I had one quick question. Insofar as the networking events that you're talking about doing and stuff like that, do you have a plan for advertising those or anything like that?
So far, what we've seen is that we get the best response when we advertise our events through Facebook. And so we're going to leverage that. Again, cheap to free, so that always works out nicely. And then also passing through our member networks and emails. As we start to re-engage our mentors, passing that through them. Hey, if you know someone who's interested in becoming a mentor, they're welcome to join us as well.
I only ask because I was involved with the Carson City Young Professionals for a while, and then they just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, they did.
So I'm definitely really interested in that.
Well, I would say just my marketing background. That I think with the Adams Hub, when I talk to people in the community about the Adams Hub, a lot of people they don't even know what it is. They're like, "Oh, what's that?" And I'm like, "It's downtown. How do you not know?" Like, I think we have a lot of small businesses here that would be interested too, and so I think that it is good to kind of target those people as well and get them in. I just had a lady who asked me today about it, and she's like, "Oh, how do you become a member and what's involved with that?" So I gave her the information and passed it along. But I definitely think like there's a little bit more opportunity there than what we have at the moment. But so I'm excited to see how that progresses.
I am open to all solutions.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Valerie. Moving on to item 7D, 7C, the collection development update.
Amy Lauder, Collection Development Manager, for the record. The first thing on my report, I already kind of talked about. That was kind of a big step, rolling over the Overdrive collection. There were a little bit of growing pains. It took a little bit longer than I had no idea how long it would take, but it took a little longer than I perhaps would have thought it would if I had thought about it. But at this point, everything's up. Everybody's patron accounts have been rolled over. Everything's pretty much there. I think Cindy's still working on a few back-end things, but overall it's there. We've got about 12,000 different titles in there, as well as many more copies of some of the more popular books, which reduces wait time. So overall, I think it's a really wonderful thing. And then my other update, I had kind of a two-parter. We have several databases paid for by the state library, and this year they added 3 different ones from EBSCO. The History Reference Center, the Points of View Reference Center, which is kind of issues-based resource for finding different arguments about different issues. And the first Spanish language one I think they provided, which is Referencia Latina, which is kind of a general reference database with Spanish language materials. And then the other piece was one of the EBSCO products that we pay for is a module that adds a tab into our catalog for all of the I think it's just fiction books that we have in our shared catalog, and adds a little module that provides extra information about the book, what kind of story elements there are, what are some similar titles and similar authors, and what are the other books in the series, so that people can take one book they're looking for and then find other things that they might be interested in. And they recently did a free update to that. It looks, I liked it before, it looks even better now and is much more interactive, where you can pick certain elements that you particularly like about a book and get some more recommendations of things that we have specifically, as well as linking out to their other the whole database that they provide for, it's just like all the books. But it's really nice to have it very brought out into the OPAC rather than having to sign into the database with your library card and go out and then go back to the catalog and see if it's there. It's right there in front of your face. You can find more things that you like to read. So that was really cool. So that's all I have today. Does anybody have any questions about those items?
Are most of the 12,000 items that are available fiction, or is there a lot of nonfiction in there also?
There's both. I would say most of it's fiction. Overdrive is definitely primarily a ledger reading, is kind of like the most of the items. For reference, we have the Gale Virtual Reference Library, has more nonfiction, that kind of thing, but more popular books, but definitely a bunch of nonfiction, lots of audiobooks. We now have graphic novels in there, and we have video in there.
Okay, great.
So we have what?
We will have magazines.
And we will have magazines through the cooperative. They're not there yet. We're waiting. But there will be magazines, which will be really nice to have all of that on the same platform and the same e-reader that people are already using. So that's coming. Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
And moving on to the creative learning update.
Virginia Evans, Creative Learning Manager, for the record. We have a lot to report. We had a huge turnout for our Lunar Rocks event. We had meteorites and lunar rocks from the moon and space. We did an event at the Carson City Library, but we also did an event at the Boys and Girls Club. Like I said, great turnout. We had over 100 in attendance for this event. It was interesting to watch. At the library, there's a long line of people waiting to actually look at the rocks. At the Boys and Girls Club, there's a long line to throw a rock on a graham cracker. So, it was fun and it was attractive for all ages. So it was very interesting. And then we had an XR training, which is like VR, but all the other versions of it, at the Nevada State Library, and we started off with breakfast and getting to go look at all the archives, which was really interesting. And then they taught us a lesson and how to set up the VR and how to teach a lesson and how to get somebody plugged in so that we will now be able to do it with patrons. And they brought in fake patrons that we had to try out on. And my first fake patron was the mayor, so so I practiced on him, which was fantastic. He went up to the space station. I took him up to the space station. He loved that one. I took him down into the ocean, and he got to see the anatomy of a shark. And he actually went like inside the shark and was looking around. It was awesome. I really loved it, and I'm so excited to be offering it at the library for the public. And I'm not a video game person myself, so going there and seeing all that we can do with this program and how it benefits education was amazing for me to know that. And now I've gained more passion from it just from going to this training, so now I'm really excited to put that passion into our patrons as well. And then we also, it's not included because it happened after I wrote this, but we had our end of summer learning challenge wrap up. We had the Cantu Inca come and dance, or not dance, they played music and did some raffles, and it was a hit. So yeah, we're all done with summer learning challenge now. On to other things going on, which I will report on later.
So what kind of VR activities will be done? Are you guys going to do workshops, or is it something that like a patron can come in and use at any time?
Great question. We also had to practice group lessons, so we can do a lesson to a group. I didn't read the lesson over lunch, and the lady, I have a background in teaching, and so the lady assumed that I did read the lesson and threw me into it, and I had to teach all these people. So I kind of made it up, and what I did with that lesson is I had the people draw a human heart just from their memory, and then I took them on lifelike VR, and they got to go in and look at the anatomy and really explore it and turn it around and click on different things. And then after they all got to explore through the VR, I gave them another piece of paper with colored pencils and said, okay, now draw the human heart. And then I gave them back their old sheet, and they got to compare and contrast. It was amazing, the difference between, I don't really know what the actual lesson was supposed to be, but that's what I did. And so that's what we're going to do for our group lessons. And then you can also do individual one-on-one, and that's what we are practicing with our fake patrons. You have to ask them, do you have a history of vertigo? Are you pregnant? Because that's a danger. And then also what we discovered kind of together, which isn't written, but asking the person, would you like to sit? And as you can see in this picture, the mayor actually wanted to sit down while he was doing this. You do get a little dizzy and kind of motion sick if you're in there too long. So, did I answer your question? Okay.
Well, so Sino, for the record, I was just going to add, we received these on a grant, and so it is grant focused at first, and that grant is focused on 13 to 18-year-olds, essentially at the high school. And so we will be working with a teacher to go through that process with those kids. But we will be offering this in the library on Fridays, and they can sign up online for a 30-minute session with Ermel. So.
Can I add? We have other like fun games too, where you can pull it back and launch a rocket. You can go in and look at different artwork from around the world. We have the Lifelike, which is more educational, but we have a bunch of different opportunities. And we have one where you can go up to the top of Mount Rainier and look around, which I had mentioned when I did it. I said, oh, I'd rather just climb up there and look at it in real life. But then when I went home and was talking about it, not everyone can do that. Not everyone has the legs to get them up to the top of Mount Rainier. So this just takes them there and they can still experience that in a different way. So, yes.
Sina, for the record, I do just want to add, Iris is reviewing our waiver for that, and Iris has also experienced the VR, so she'll really know what to put in that waiver.
Yeah, I remember from the library update evening, I was, wandering around and trying to keep my bearings. So, yeah, definitely make sure that waiver's up to date and rock solid and all that. Excellent. Thank you very much, Virginia. With that, we will move on to item 8, board member announcements and requests for information. Did any board members have anything for that item? Seeing none forthcoming, we'll move on to item 9, public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the Library Board of Trustees, now would be the time. Seeing none forthcoming, we'll move on to item 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn? Hit the button.
So moved.
We are adjourned.